You know, I think we all do it. We all make assumptions about the sound of a speaker even before we hear the speaker. I know I do that. In this case, if you make assumptions about the sound of this speaker, the Radiant Acoustics Clarity 6.2, just by looking at it, no, you're going to be way off. And I'm here to tell you all about it because I had the distinct pleasure of actually listening to this speaker and now telling you all about the look of the speaker, the build of the speaker, and the sound quality of the speaker. Now, it's a new company, Radiant Acoustics is, but the people behind the company are industry veterans, starting with Peter Lingdorf, who is the founder and owner of Dolly Speakers, and he is the co-founder of Purify, the company that makes the woofer, the mid-woofer in this speaker, and also the Purify Class D modules that are seen and used in many high-end Class D amplifiers. Let's take a closer look at the 6.2. It is a two-way stand mount speaker. It's a 6.5.5-inch Purify woofer. And Purify woofers are designed with a bunch of goals in mind, but I'll talk about the two main ones. One is deep bass extension for a driver of this size, while maintaining incredibly low levels of distortion. Deep bass, low distortion, and that's exactly what you get from the Clarity 6.2. Now, I know that there are other small speakers that can go way down into the bass, but they're not the clearest. This one, the Clarity 6.2, is shocking in how fast and deep the bass actually goes. In my room, I was getting bass below 40 hertz, 37, 38 hertz. Now the tweeter, before I get to the tweeter, on the sides of the 6.2, you will see drivers that look the same, also made by Purify, but those are 6.5-inch passive radiators. Now as for the tweeter, it is an air motion transformer tweeter. And I've heard many, many, many speakers with air motion transformers, AMTs. But this one is different for a couple of reasons, starting with the fact that this one is designed and made in-house. It is not an off-the-shelf driver made in Denmark. And it has an exclusive waveguide, or kind of looks like a horn, but they call it a waveguide. And that is also proprietary to the design of the Clarity 6.2. And that waveguide basically controls the dispersion of the tweeter. And before I forget to mention it, these speakers, unlike most, they really want to be placed near parallel to the wall behind them. Virtually, well, just a little bit of toe-in was what I needed, right? And that surprised me. It's a big, they produce a huge, wide soundstage, and even better, with incredible focus and clarity. I mean, it's called the Clarity 6.2 for a reason, because this speaker's clarity / transparency and purity and accuracy is, again, for its size. It is a small stand mount speaker. It can play loud without sounding like it's getting like stressed out, increasing levels of distortion. No, it plays louder and louder and louder. For my ears, I didn't want to get much louder than that, with peaks around 93, 94 dB in my room. I have a feeling it'll get a lot louder than that, but that's as far as I pushed it. The cabinet work is extraordinary, by the way. Oh, it comes in white or black lacquer finish or real walnut veneer. The cabinet weighs nearly 24 pounds. That's a lot for a speaker this size. And one of the reasons it's that heavy is the front baffle is extra thick. It's made up of two parts, 15 millimeter aluminum, and behind that 18 millimeter MDF, and the aluminum and MDF are bonded together. So it is a very sturdy platform for the tweeter and the woofer. Now the price of this speaker is $4,498 a pair. That price includes the shipping, so no extra charges for shipping anywhere in the world. And they also pay the local taxes. So the landed price to you is always going to be the same, $4,498 a pair. It is sold with a 30-day return policy. The Clarity 6.2 is sold in brick and mortar stores in Europe, Hi-Fi Kluben, so you can go and hear it. If you're lucky enough to live in Europe, you can go listen to the speakers before you buy them. It's sold with a 10-year warranty. That's double what you usually get. And here are the complete specifications for the Clarity 6.2. I used count them, two sets of electronics over the course of this review. The linear tube audio microzonal preamplifier, the linear tube audio Aero DAC, it's a tube DAC, and the power amp was my long-term reference, the Pass Labs XA25 Class A amplifier. But I also used, and I really got into this, I was using the Rogue Audio Kronos Magnum 3 Dark. And for speaker comparisons, I used the Zu DW6, the DW6, the floor standing version of that speaker, and the Buchart S400 Mark II stand mount speaker. It's a Danish speaker. It seemed like a logical comparison for the Clarity 6.2. As for the setup and details, well, I started listening to the speakers at the other end of the room where I usually have the Pure Audio Project speakers. And I put the Clarity 6.2s in the spots that usually work for small stand mount speakers. It was good. It was really good in terms of the imaging and spaciousness and openness of the speaker. Extraordinary. But I wasn't getting a lot of bottom end out of the speaker. It was okay, down to around 55 or so. Decent for a speaker this size, but not what I was expecting because they told me the speaker can go really low. So they brought them over to this end of the room and had them about 15 inches away from the wall behind them. And oh yeah, that was definitely all there. I was getting bass down to 37, 38 hertz, pretty smooth, and very, very clear, hyper clear, low end bass. And the imaging was really good. Not quite as good when they were out in open space in the other end of the room, but still very, very focused. That blew my mind how clear it was. I mean, a lot of speakers can image with some specificity, but not quite like this one does. And the other thing that grabbed me, by the way, was the way this speaker handles contrast. Like that is when there's really loud instruments going and then quieter instruments at the same time, and then you can hear them both in proportion to each other. Like, wow. Yeah, like somebody's really hammering away on a piano, and then the drummer is doing really subtle things with the brushes, and you hear these two things going on. It's like, yikes, that is really special. No other small speaker can do that as well as this one can, in my experience. They were on 24-inch tall solid steel stands. That's the name of the company that makes the stands, Solid Steel. You know, as these listening sessions went on, it hit me that the speaker that this one sounds the most like, strangely enough, is the Magnepan 0.7X. Because the 0.7X was hyper clear, that super resolving quality that the 0.7X could do. And that's what the Clarity 6.2 can do, except that the Clarity 6.2 has real bottom end power and support and dynamic range. It is a far more dynamically alive speaker than the Magnepan 0.7X. And you know, the other thing is this speaker can play loud, really loud, like mid 90 dB peaks with ease. There's no sense of increasing distortion or strain. No, it's just sailing right along. That really surprised me, because you look at a little speaker and you have, like I said at the beginning of this review, you have expectations of what it can do and what it can't do. And the Clarity 6.2 has big speaker finesse and ease, that it can really do those things up to a point. I'm not saying, please don't misunderstand me, that these speakers are a replacement for, let's say, Klipsch Cornwall 4s, which are gigantic compared to these speakers. No, it does not sound like that. It does not sound like a Klipsch Forte 4. No, it doesn't do quite that. But in its size, for, I was going to say for what it is, for a very small speaker, it can keep surprising you in what it can do. Oh, as for music, I got to start with this one. This is the new David Chesky solo piano album. It's a live recording, and it's the power of the instrument that comes through the speakers so well. Dynamically alive, absolutely. And his left hand, you can really feel those woofers working. I mean that in a good sense, right? It has real weight and power to this piano. It's close recording, And that's why you get that sense of really like being there. You're basically in David Chesky's seat as you're listening to this music. You're hearing it from his perspective. And it is really one of those wow demo recordings. The second album I want to tell you about is this one from Cafe. He is a percussionist. I've known him for decades now. Anyway, he's an amazing human being. I remember one time at a session, he just started doing somersaults like a 5-year-old. Here's this grown man, and he's just like doing these cartwheels and stuff. The guy has a lot of energy, and he certainly does on this recording. He's playing percussion. He does some spoken word parts and stuff. It's a gorgeous recording, and it's sort of set in a rainforest, like a Brazilian rainforest. And the soundstage is gigantic, much wider than the locations of the speakers. And it's just, it puts you in a space. Oh, and this newly released Crosby, Stills, Nash & Young live at the Fillmore East, 1969. Oh, how I wish I was there, but I wasn't. But anyway, the band had only been together for like a month at this point. And the crowd is in there, and the joy of the musicians singing together and those incredible harmonies, especially David Crosby and Graham Nash, the way they just harmonize, it's just stunning. And the recording, I wouldn't say this is a great recording. It is what it is, recorded 55 years ago, but it does capture that time, that space, that sense of hopefulness that was in the air, despite everything that was going on in the late 60s. Time of great upheaval. Anyway, this recording played over these speakers just floored me. As I was playing all those recordings I just referred to, I was doing comparisons between the 6.2 and the Buchart S400 Mark II. Now that one, by the way, the Buchart, also has a passive radiator, just one on its back panel. So even though it's also a pretty small speaker, it can make some bass. But it was not even close to the bass that was coming out of the 6.2. I mean, it has a fullness, it has this ease to the presentation, which I really love. The Buchart S400 Mark II is one of my reference speakers. And I love it because it's a very musical sounding speaker. It's an easy speaker to listen to. But when I go to the 6.2, the 6.2's levels of resolution and clarity from the bottom to the top in another league. Now, of course, the 6.2 is almost twice as expensive as the Buchart. So, but anyway, I'm here to tell you what I heard, and that's what I heard. As I mentioned more than once, this is a high transparency, high resolution speaker. The 6.2 gets in and you really hear what's going on in the recording. But you hear the good, but you also hear the bad, and you also hear the ugly. I mean, when it's compressed and nasty sounding, it's not a fun ride. So depending on your taste in music, if you got mostly really good sounding recordings, this is good. But if you have a lot of harsh, nasty music, this one is going to let you really hear how unpleasant that music can sound. So a heads up on that. So next, I wanted to compare the Zu Dirty Weekend 6 floor standing speaker with a 10-inch full range driver and a separate tweeter. I want to compare that to the 6.2, and the music that I was listening to was this collection, this ambient collection by Aphex Twin. Now this music is all over the place, but it has tunes that have a lot of deep pounding bass. I wanted to see how these two speakers, little one and big one, would compare. And guess what? The 6.2 went down. Oh yeah, it went deep into the bass with incredible definition. The Zu Dirty Weekend could go down. It was a little softer and mushier and vague when it got to the lower extremes of the bass. As for the mids and highs of this recording, lots of, crazy electronic details and stuff. That stuff, I would definitely give the nod to the 6.2 in terms of revealing more and having a bigger sound stage. But, the DW6 is no slouch, but it's laid back. It's a laid back sounding speaker compared to the 6.2. Oh, and by the way, the DW6 is about half the price of the 6.2. Now, I wish I brought this up earlier in the review, but the difference in sound between the pass amplifier, solid state amplifier, and the Rogue Audio tube versus solid state. Well, those differences were pretty clear, that the Rogue amplifier just added some more, let's say, dimensionality, some fullness, some lushness to the sound. I would still say that not that it would make harsh, compressed, nasty sounding recordings suddenly acceptable. It moved them in that direction, but I still wouldn't say that got them over the line. But I got to say, overall, with good quality recordings, I like this combination of the Clarity 6.2 and the Rogue Audio Tube amp. They just seem to be in good balance with each other, the way they just sort of flesh things out. Piano recordings sounded phenomenal. Vocals had great humanity and warmth and presence. Yeah, this speaker does, I should have said this again also earlier, this speaker does presence, like the voice on a microphone, the guitar on a mic. You just sense that they're right there. There's that right there-ness to the sound that turns me on. I am now eager, yes, I am now eager to do, so Steve, what do you really think of the Radiant Acoustics Clarity 6.2? Well, let's see. This speaker is 100% an overachiever. It just breaks through expectations like nobody's business. Because of that low-end extension and power and finesse, mid-range naturalness, extended highs, incredible imaging, so clearly defined. It's great. It's really great. Now, I do think that matching with a right amplifier for a given customer is important, that you don't want to use an amplifier that's certainly lean or bright. You definitely don't want to go there. You want to use it with the good stuff. And I would recommend leaning towards warm. That'd be my personal recommendation for the partnering electronics. For the DAC, in this case, the linear tube audio Aero DAC, it's a good matchup. Anyway, I'm so happy. I'm so happy to have done this review because I like to be surprised, and this speaker kept surprising me. And speaking of surprises, yeah, let's do it. You know it. You love it. The Audiophiliac viewer system of the day. Hey, Felix sent in these pictures. He lives in Kendall, Florida. His turntable is a Riga P6 with a Dynavector DV20X cartridge. The DAC streamer is a Hi-Fi Rose RS250 with CD transport. The integrated amp, Prima Luna Evo 200 with KT120 power tubes and 4 Radiotech new old stock from 1965 12 AU7 preamp tubes. The phono stage is a Riga Aria Mark III. Headphone amp, Felix Audio Echo. Speakers, Spender Classic 3/1 on solid steel speaker stands. Speaker cable, by the way, is Nordist Red Dawn, which is one of my main cables. The subwoofer is a Rel TX7. Power conditioner, Audio Quest Niagara 1200. Interconnects are by Nordist. Power cables by Audio Quest. Isolation components are ISO Acoustics and Butcher Block Acoustics. For headphones, there's Audeze LCD2 and Maze 109 Pro. Thank you, Felix. All right, we are back. My name is Steve Guttenberg. It's true. I am the Audiophiliac, and I am here to serve you. But I need a little help. So if you were to consider joining my Patreon for just a couple of bucks a month, up to the top 2 tiers, $50 or even $100 a month, and every month at the beginning of the month, you and I will have a one-on-one conversation. And I got to say, I've been doing this for years now. I have so much fun doing these calls. It's so nice connecting to the audiophiles out there in the world. There was a guy I was talking to for years who lived in Japan. He was an Italian guy who lived in Japan. You know, I got a guy in Israel that I talk to all the time. All over, and of course, most of them are in the United States. But anyway, it's nice to connect with people who are out there on the other side of this screen, or other side of this camera in my case. So anyway, please consider joining. And if you have yet to subscribe, just subscribe to the YouTube channel. I'd appreciate that. And definitely give me a thumbs up when you think I deserve it. And with that, I could say my work here is at last complete. Thank you again for watching, and I really do hope to see you back here again very, very soon. Bye-bye.